going on, everybody? Number 2 out there. I don't know if we call it a podcast or YouTube. It's only going on YouTube right now, but it'll be on podcast eventually. But it's Profits Over Parrots. And as a reminder, it's for those people that have deep convictions about truth and knowledge. We want to broadcast truth and knowledge. We want people to be deeply convicted about the things that they believe. And we want to challenge some of the things that you believe, just like we've been challenged to reevaluate some of the convictions and some of the things that we thought were true. And we're doing that as we work it out in life, practically. So don't be a parrot. Don't repeat people's stuff without knowing what the heck the outcome is. Be a prophet. So check out our new logo. Let us know what you think. We're trying to make it even more.
That's all Teddy.
Yeah, even more gross. I kind of wanted like a really nasty dead parrot, but the guy wouldn't do it. He must have liked animals.
Zero creativity on this side of the table.
So, hey, why don't you kick it off, Brandon? What's our topic today?
What are we talking about? Decision making.
Decision making. Oh, decision making.
So Teddy and I have been kind of, chatting like we always do. Get in the truck, some good conversation going, and one of the guys that's with us at Takaba is Akeem. Shout out to Akeem. And Teddy was kind of sharing with me some of his decision-making process that he's going through and trying to get involved in real estate and trying to do wise things with his money and be a good steward of his finances. And so we said, hey, stop talking about it and talk about it more and get on the podcast. So here we are.
Poor Akeem can't defend himself. He's like, what, they're doing a podcast without me?
Yeah. For me, there's a couple, I love the discussion and the idea of decision making. I think it's something that you can revisit often. I think it's something that you can forever reflect on. I don't think you necessarily want to dwell on it and sort of a coulda, woulda, shoulda, but I think there's a ton of opportunity to look back, and I firmly believe one of my convictions is that you are right where you're supposed to be at every point in time in your life because you are a walking, talking culmination and result of every decision that you've made up to that point in your life.
Yeah.
So that's a conviction for me.
So I want to talk about a couple of things. The reason we even bring this up, right, is because all of us, including myself and Brandon, believe it or not, we've made bad decisions, right? So I think there's good decisions, prudent decisions that can be made. There's principles that we want to share on how we've, learned to do that. And then there's bad decisions. Different than taking risk and failing, which I think there's nothing wrong with that. You can't know everything. But there's ways to protect yourself from just doing stuff that, is a grenade on your leg. Or
Let's talk through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I think the starting point, the foundation for making sound decisions would be to live by some principles. And however you develop your principles, well, that'll really be determined by your life experience up to that point.
Sure.
And so I think that this really cool circle, if you haven't read Principles by Ray Dalio, shout out to Ray Dalio and what he's put together. Phenomenal book. And he talks about the successes of Bridgewater and why they're so successful and the transparency in the decision-making process. They're making decisions every single day. And what's cool about the world that they're in is they get to see the results of that 24 hours later.
That's right.
Quickly. A week later, a month later, and so forth. Some of the decisions that we make in life, we really may not get to see the results of, which brings us to another topic, policymakers.
Sure.
Why there's always a battle in D.C.,
sure,
left and the right, is we fight over policy, and a lot of that stuff you don't really get to see the repercussions of or the result or the benefit of for years, maybe decades later.
Sure. And the reason we brought that up, we just came back from a D.C. trip, visiting our friend Bill Mason up there. Got to meet with Mark Green a little bit, the king of Uganda, King John. Shout out to all those guys.
Yeah.
And got an interesting perspective on D.C.
Mm-hmm.
I think I went personally thinking, gosh, what a huge mess up there. When it comes to decision making, like, why can't they figure this out? And the reality for me, my takeaway from getting just a little bit of nuggets that Bill shared as we were walking around is the system works. The system actually works. Mm-hmm. It's not that decisions aren't being made, it's that decisions aren't being made hastily. And so that benefits both sides. You know, the left with a lot of empathy, the right with a lot of principle. It benefits both. And I think it's good to have that discussion so that, you know, for me, I can value the other side. I see where the other side's coming from. I can figure out ways to communicate better on how I, you know, value certain things on my way. When things don't get done, that's actually not bad, right? It's not, you know, a mismanagement, although there is some of that. There's a lot of, you know, corruption and stuff like that. But the system is set up so that it works.
There's a lot of genius and maybe perhaps by design or accident, for better or for worse, but it is meant to be
Absolutely.
sort of a, hey, hold your horses. There's the Senate, there's the House, and you've got the president, and they've each been dedicated their roles. And there needs to be a ton of consensus among every party involved. So anyway.
So good, because we're talking about that, and we don't want to veer off to a big old political discussion, but at a micro, you know, in your life, right, you've got to develop principles and a system to set yourself up for success. If you're going out there shooting arrows, you know, without a target, you're set up for failure, and you're going to be a real frustrated person. You heard on the last one, you know, I think when you were 25, when I was 25, super frustrated. And some of that was in part to I was making decisions in a vacuum, right? No real counsel, right? No real principles. I thought I had conviction, but the conviction was more feelings than something that's actually proven. And so this is something that I'm deeply convicted in. I'll tell you what, and a quick story, if I could.
Have at it.
All right. So speaking of Bill, I met him in 2005. Up until then, the only people that really had any kind of influence in my life were maybe a little bit from my supervisor at work in the Air Force and my parents. Beyond that, it was just me solo, right? I would just make decisions and then hope that they work. Created a big old huge mess out of my life. And then in 2005, I met Bill. He, you know, challenged me, not just primarily spiritually, which is one of the areas that I was struggling with the most. And, you know, growing up in church, thinking that I had it all squared away, I showed up to church every time the doors were open, so I think I'm good there, except it wasn't working in my life. So Bill, you know, being a missionary and challenging, you know, me, he challenged me in an area of this principle of trusting God and not living, you know, in a vacuum. And so for a year I watched him because I didn't trust anybody ever. It took about a year for me to trust him. He kept asking me, hey, let's do my budget. Now, understand, I was 25 in the Air Force as a staff sergeant. I had cars that I shouldn't be driving. I lived in a house that, you know, I actually could afford my house, but the cars and stuff, the stuff around was very materialistic. Couldn't afford it.
They were indicators of a much
Absolutely
larger
huge
problem.
Indicator, right? So he was like, hey, let's do this budget. And I was like, no, if I, you know, uncover this, you're going to think I'm a fool. You know, I had a lot of pride. And I waited a year like a big dummy. I could have been actually well off, you know, had I done it when he asked me. Waited a year. You know, we uncovered that mess. And the reason for that was there was Lupe at this time, my wife, you know, she was ready to leave me 2 years before that. I made it worse and worse, you know, trying to, you know, cover this, you know, black hole in my heart with depression, whatever you want to call it, with material things. And, you know, I'd feel depressed, I'd go buy something. I'd feel depressed, I'd go trade in a car and go get something better. I know there's some of you out there that, you know, feel that way. And so I'm out there making decisions in a vacuum and slowly but surely setting myself up for more and more destruction. I finally opened myself up to a man that helped me spiritually in an area that's very spiritually tied, which is finances. He looked at it, and I thought he was going to go, man, your stuff is trash. You know, good luck. I was $78,000 in debt. And this was right during the housing, you know, bubble, which was even worse. So I was upside down in my house. Yeah. And what he said was, no worries. I've got a plan. I'm going to employ your wife because I was living $300 some in the hole. He employed my wife for $400. And then he said, this is where practical comes in, practical and tactical. He said, if you're going to spend $10 or above, you're going to give me a call. Now we're talking about real practical decision making, right? Men don't like to do that. Women don't like to do that. We want to have control, right? What happens when we have control and we're not good historically at making decisions? We blow up our life. So I had a decision to make, right? Do I submit myself to this guy, right, who has shown me what it's like to actually live a free life, or do I go and try to do it again? Historically, I suck at this, right? We started going into cash. We started, living our budget based on cash, and literally had $70 to our name per month left over, which was not a lot of money, if you know what I'm talking about. And Bill taught me not only to submit to somebody, to a community of people that can hold me accountable, that could help me to get somewhere where I'm trying to get, but he showed me what humility looks like. So he would invite me to the movies. He knew damn well I didn't have any money. Mm-hmm. So it would piss me off. I'd be like, he would text me or he would call me, and then I would hang up and go, no, I don't want to go. And I would sit there thinking, he knows I don't have any money. Then he would call me again. Hey, are you sure you don't want to go? And I'm like, yeah, jerk, I do want to go, but I don't have any money. And he would go, it's fine, I'll pay for you. And I was like, I don't want you to pay for me. And what he taught me was, so you can't accept a gift. You're still prideful. I'm trying to help you in this area, and you still won't accept the help that's being offered. Mm-hmm. And I thought, holy smokes. Yeah. So then I would go, okay, yeah, I'll go to the movies, eat my humble pie, and enjoyed my time and learned, you know what? If I'm going to get out of this hole, then this is what I'm going to do for other people, mm-hmm. right? And so this principle of having some sort of community, somebody that you're accountable to, somebody that's helping you, that's got your best interests in mind, that's got to be one of the principles, right, to set yourself up for success. So that's my quick story.
That's great. I think I love the part about him taking you to the movies. You rob him of his opportunity to serve you when you say no.
Absolutely.
And you taught me that. There's a guy who's in a position to help you. Don't rob him of his opportunity to serve you.
Absolutely.
Because that's good practice for him. It's good practice for you. It's a good opportunity to go spend time together. And $5 may not be much to him, but to you it means the world.
Sure, absolutely.
So we talked about principles. That's an awesome story, Teddy. We talked about keeping wise counsel, and we touched on the history of decision making. And man, I just think that you've got to, some people call it take inventory. You've got to do an assessment. You've got to revisit often where you're at, where you were, and where you're going.
Yep.
And so I think too often you kind of get caught up in the day-to-day. No time for it. But again, set a time, some side to revisit where you're at on your decision making and bounce it off people.
There you go. And that's the big one, Brandon. So if I were to ask you right now, right? But I'm going to ask Brandon.
Well,
Brandon.
Here we go.
Yeah. If you have to make a huge decision.
I'm going to buy a new Toyota.
There you go.
Who do I call? I don't know shit about vehicles. I know that Toyotas run well and that Chevrolets don't.
Man, if you're out there with a Chevy.
No offense. Look, I grew up on Chevy. But anyway, who do I call? I call the guy that, and to my knowledge, knows the most about vehicles. Hey, I know you're on a date with your wife. I'm going to call you at 10. Make yourself available. I'm going to FaceTime you. I want you to look over this vehicle with me. I'm probably going to buy it. I took it for a test drive. It checks out. Tell me what you think. Simple.
Yep.
We did a couple assessments. Gave me a warm and fuzzy. To me, principally, I'll never buy another vehicle unless I get a third-party opinion from somebody that I trust. Very, very simple. Hey, I'm going to buy a house. All right. What's your budget look like? What are your plans for it? Do you have an exit strategy?
Right.
What do you
somebody that's going to ask you those questions, right? Yeah. So here's the challenge,
Glad
right?
you said that.
Somebody that is going to ask you not just questions, but the hard questions, right?
I want to throw out another book.
There you go.
Just talked about go for it. The Richest Man in Babylon. Check it out. It's a quick read. It's got some pure gold in it. I try to revisit about once a month. There's a great line or two in there, and it says, why would you go to the bricklayer for financial advice? Right? If I want to learn how to lay bricks, I go to the bricklayer.
That's right.
If I want to learn about travel, I go to the guy who does travel. If I want to learn about astrology, I go to the astronomer. If I want to learn about money, I'm going to the banker or the businessman.
That's right.
There it is.
Yep.
Very simple. So be careful who you get your advice from.
Yeah, big time. But somebody, you've got to, and this goes both ways, right? You've got to allow somebody into your life, more than one, hopefully, that can ask you the hard questions, that's going to call the BS flag when he sees you scheming, right? You've got to have those people in your life. Whether you make a bad decision or not, at least you have some gap stops, right? That can go, oh, hold on, right? That doesn't mean you have to have the same convictions as them, but that somebody can ask the questions, right? Because if you go into it in a vacuum, I almost guarantee you it's not going to work out because you don't have
I got another Ray
the
Dalio
knowledge.
story.
Yeah.
Okay. In his book, he's diagnosed with, I think it was cancer, and he's telling the story. And the first determination of, his disease or whatever it is, not good.
Yeah, I remember
and the
that.
doctor says, hey, you got like a 90% chance of death, but that's your only option. We're going to go cut it out or do our thing. And he goes, damn.
Yep.
Let me go get a second opinion.
That's right.
Right? So then he calls this other doctor. Hey, doc, this is what I got going on. This was the first doctor's assessment. Here's her information. What are your thoughts? We're going to run new exams. Let's do it again. It's a second opinion. You know what he does? He gets a third one. Lines up a third doctor, runs a third set of tests, gets on independent phone calls with all three of them, and then goes, hey, I want to get all three of you on one phone call. This is where it gets good. All right. Are you guys okay with that? And the fact that they all said yes was a good indicator that they're not there for ego. They're not there for really anything except figuring out what the truth is. He calls this triangulation. He got his three big brains on the phone, and they worked it out. And it turns out that I think it was the second or third doctor had the right determination and the right, decision on what they were going to do. They all decided on it. He went forward with that. It all worked out.
That's crazy.
So it was a misdiagnosis from the first doctor.
Yep.
And because he said, hey, I'm going to go get a second, third opinion, everything worked out, and he's not dead.
Yeah.
So line up your mentors, put them in a room, put them on a call, put them on an email chain, and say, hey.
WhatsApp?
Dude, yeah, put them. How many WhatsApp chains do I have?
I would have many, a bunch, yeah.
15?
Yep.
Hey, guys, you guys are my professionals in this domain. This is a situation. Right. What are your thoughts?
That's right.
Terrible idea. Don't do that. Got it. So I've got on the board check pain levels. That's a great indicator of your decision making.
Yeah.
If your life hurts and it's not where you thought it should be and you got a lot of pain, there's not a better indicator that something's wrong.
Sure.
So check pain levels often.
Yeah. What should you be looking for, Brandon? When your pain level is up, and I remember this vividly in 2005, pain level was super high, right? Don't let it be too late, right? Where that climb out is freaking brutal. What would you do in that situation?
I think you're going to get a mixed bag of answers. But if you're truly at, let's say, rock bottom's like, man, I'm strung out on drugs and everybody hates me and I'm living on the streets. That's pretty bad in America.
That's a rock star.
But if you're, if the pain points are high enough, again, if you're in a situation where you don't have community and you don't have anyone that surrounds you, I would start with making a friend.
There you go.
I would call the one trustworthy person you have. Dude, there's Google, by the way. I mean, shit. You can literally YouTube and Google your life to you can literally make your way to a PhD through Google and YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of resources out there.
Yeah. Go do some homework.
Reach out to people. You got the resources. Dude, you got Facebook, Facebook Messenger, Instagram. You can, direct message somebody.
Counsel.
LinkedIn.
Yep.
We have literally reached out. How many people have we reached out that have, returned our message and said, yeah, we'll get time with you?
All of them.
And some of them have broed out with us. Some of them show up to a study that we host here on Thursday. And they are, not just solid men, like they're good dudes.
Yeah.
Like 60-year-olds, 50-year-olds, people that I'm like, I want to be like that guy. And I'm going to listen to everything he's got to say. And they bring a perspective that is, you don't know it. You don't know what you don't know. You're not 60 years old. You've got another 20 years to go. You don't know that information. I don't care how freaking smart you are.
Old tongue loves to wag.
That's right.
Ask them.
That's right.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone I've gone to with a legitimate question or concern or seeking advice, and they've gone, Brandon, I like you, but I'm not going to share that information with you.
Yeah.
Haven't heard that once.
Not yet. Not yet. We'll do a podcast when we find that guy.
When I find that guy, I'll go, hey, Dick, can you come on the podcast?
That's right.
Explain why you wouldn't share that with. So anyway, on our decision-making board, one of the things I wanted to talk about is lay it out. Again, we talked about writing it down last week. I wrote best case scenario, most likely, and worst case. Take some time, spend 2 minutes on worst case. We can come up with that right now, right? Worst case scenario, Keem buys a house.
So let's talk about that. Let's expand on that real quick, because this is something that a lot of people are into, buying their first house, right? So Akeem, let's just use another person, but this is very similar to a lot of people. Most people are going to go buy a house and they're going to be told, right, that it's an investment. Surprise, surprise. Your primary residence is not an investment. It is a liability. You have to pay for it. You have to have a job or some way, some form to pay for it. If that thing is not paying you, and I don't care that you're going to get, 50% equity in the next 10 years, that's maybe, right? If it's not making you money, it is not an asset, right?
Rich dad, poor dad. How do you define an asset? How do you define a liability? Does it make you money or not?
Right.
Very simple.
So I'm talking to a 25-year-old who's ready to purchase a house, very wise, very, squared away. And my advice to him is buy a property that you can rent another room out to, right? I know you don't want to rent with somebody, but do it for a year, maybe do it for 2. That'll make you income, right? If he has a roommate, that roommate more than likely will pay most of the mortgage cost, right? That money that he would have paid to the mortgage, he can pay into the mortgage and drop his principal.
Sure.
He can put into the bank to save for the next house that he decides. Let's just say he decides he wants one rental, and he wants this next one to be his primary residence. He doesn't want to live with nobody, right? We highlighted these 3 scenarios, right? Let's say his job goes to hell in a handbasket. He can't get a job. He's living in a house with a roommate that's paying his mortgage. He could go get a job at Walmart and still cover his X's and O's, right?
All day.
Scenario 1. Let's say the market drops. Let's say the whole bottom of the market drops and he's upside down 20 grand on that house. Who cares? He's got a roommate that's still going to pay rent. He's still going to cover his mortgage. Perfectly fine, right? I mean, we can go ad infinitum, right? Until, you can't come up with worst case scenario. And I'm trying to help these guys to understand. I wish I had somebody like that speaking to my life, when I was 25 about this stuff. Now, I'm not a victim. The reality is the information was out there. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't know what I didn't know.
You weren't ready for it.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for it. But by God, we're going to share this. We're going to propagate as much profits as possible out there so that people can understand, he doesn't even have to be an investor. If all he has is one rental and one primary residence the rest of his life, he'll be better off than 90% of people in America. Think about that.
Yep.
But that's just from counsel.
You know where I stand on real estate. Yeah. I'm a huge believer. You can ask, a lot of the community. I'm sold on it.
Well, and the challenge is, and I was the worst at this. If I had saved up 20 grand, you know what Teddy's going to go buy?
A Porsche.
Teddy's going to go buy a car. And nobody, oh, that's awesome. Go buy a car, right? If I would have known, right? If I had set myself up for success, somebody could have said, hey, buying a Porsche is great, but why don't you wait 5 years to buy a really nice Porsche and buy up 5 properties within that 5 years, and then you're golden. Even if you buy nothing else ever again, right? Even if you want to blow the rest of your money on cars, right? But I didn't get that at 25. Again, not anybody else's fault. I wasn't looking for that information, right? So
I think that's good. I think that's a good reflection point for you to look back on.
But you know what? I'm 40. Just turned 40 this year.
Congratulations.
I don't care. I mean,
you missed any meals?
I haven't missed any meals. And the reality is I used to think when I was 30, I would look at a 30-year-old that was doing well and I was like, man, I'm behind. And every once in a while I'll catch myself and look at a 40-year-old that's way beyond, where I'm at. And I think, what have I done? I'm failing. And I'm thinking, that's dumb, right? If I look at my community of people, the people that help me make decisions, right? They care dearly for me and I care dearly for them. They love me, right? I'm good.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have people in your life, but you're doing really well, right? And you're 40 years
Hey
old.
man, you got some shit on your nose.
Yeah.
Don't go out into public with that.
And you don't have bros to freaking, sharpen iron against iron.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, that is brutal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I literally do not. Now, let me make this straight. Brandon knows I would like to have a jet. And I'm not, this is a goal in 5 years to have a jet. Whether I get one or not, whatever. I'm content, right? But that's because I have a community. I have people that can, pump me up when I need it, and they can, bring me down when I need it as well. And without that in decision making, you're screwed. You are literally screwed. I'm just going to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not that smart. You're not. So talk to me about how you've made some of your decisions. Pre-community, post-community. Right. And I mean, like, letting people into your life.
Yeah. Let me think. Probably I've taken some pretty rough decision points, and I held them dearly. So I think there's a lot to be said. Look, if you want to make a bad decision, or you don't want to make a bad decision, but you do, just do it once.
Sure. Learn from it,
Learn from it quick. One of the things I talk to Deanna about often is how well do you learn your lessons? And there's a couple times when I look and I'm like, damn, did I just do that again? I guess I didn't learn that lesson well enough, And so I'll give you an example. Injuries, physical injuries, probably, where it just destroys, I'll do something and just keep pushing and challenging, and it's kind of in my nature to go hard and not listen. Another one is kind of running myself down into the ground when I feel sickness coming on, and I'm sort of...
Oh, whiny Brandon, here he comes.
I'm like, I get sick easily. And so, I'm like feeling these things like, oh my God. I'll give you another one. Opening my mouth during family discussions when there's no benefit to it whatsoever.
Sure. Yeah, they're not asking you for advice.
Here's another one. Opening up a project and starting business before being given the green light by the local authority.
Sure. Man, you can talk
I can go
for days.
Have a whole podcast on that.
For days. Yeah.
Not vetting who I'm getting into bed with.
Sure.
As far as a deal or a relationship.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I'm slowly getting better at is seeing someone a little bit more for who they are and their experience, as opposed to just taking them for their word. I look at someone, and then I think one of the best things you can do is look at someone's life.
Well, here's one of the things that you do. I don't think you even notice that you do this, right? And here's something that I used to do. I still do. When I say used to because Bill's not here, so I got to bring him around other people. I would go, hey, let's go get lunch. And, oh, by the way, one of my buddies is coming with.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So you do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So then I'll meet so-and-so, and it's like, okay, what's the context here? I don't even know what's going on.
Right.
And I get an unbiased look at who this dude is, right? And it's funny, we'll get in the car, and you'll be like, hey, what do you think about that guy?
Yep.
And I'll be like, I don't like, something's wrong, something's fishy, or man, I think he's a good dude, right? Yep. And now you get to, reaffirm one way or the other what your thoughts were.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll tell you what, one of the things that, I want to take this with a grain of salt. In the military, it's sort of this mentality of, which is the right mentality for that scenario. It's better to make the wrong decision now than the right decision later. And outside of that scenario, I'm wrestling with that one. So that's a principle that I'm revisiting as to, fuck it, let's make a decision. I can go, press forward. I don't want to talk about it. It's done. We've made the decision, push forward. In life, with your family and your community, your business, your relationships, you can kind of go, let that one simmer. We're not going to make a decision. I like and Dalio made me revisit this. He says, when you're struggling with making a decision on two really good or really bad things, don't do anything for as long as possible.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions that I often ask guys, and I asked you, do you have peace about it? So you were asking me, what's the hardest decision that I've had to make in the last couple months? And I can't think of anything decision that I've made, but I'm wrestling through a decision.
Yeah.
Right. And, me and you've had some good discussions on it, but it's taken on debt to grow a business, right? So that's been pretty difficult to wrestle through. And, and that goes back to my history. I'm just, there's a lot of fear there. It's not a little bit of money, right? We're not talking about buying a car. We're talking about taking, $500,000, $1 million plus of, debt to grow a company. But
what is your, we'll get back to it.
Yeah.
How do you do that? What does that look like?
Yeah. So the process for me, right?
So, hey,
I pray.
Teddy wakes up and he goes,
Shit,
what? I got a hard decision to make.
Yeah. Then I'm in constant, at this point, I'm like, God, you got to give me something, right? Because I have no peace. For me, the biggest thing is if I don't have peace about something, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
So you pray.
So I pray. I ask Lupe, hey, babe, what do you think? If she's not on board, absolutely not.
Yep.
Not going to happen. Like I've said before, I think she's tempered the right way. I'm not. I'm very emotional.
Most voters vote based on temperament.
Interesting.
Just a little known fact.
Interesting.
Yep. They vote. They say that you vote with your conscience, but you vote with your temperament. However that individual gets up there and handles themselves, which is interesting because we understand policy, which I would equate to principles.
Yeah.
Right. That's the foundation that decisions are made on. And I know that when I get on a highway, the bottom's not going to fall out. Like when I come to you and I go, hey, Teddy, here's a deal. I know that you're going to do a couple things. You're going to pray on it. You're going to talk to Lupe. You're going to talk to Bill. And you're going to seek wise counsel. That's like getting on the highway.
Yep.
That road is going to be there for the next 100 miles.
Well, and it's tough when anybody that's my friend brings a deal or they want to do something together, I want to say yes.
Always.
Yeah. Because I think, well, why not? Right. But what I've learned is, right, if I don't ask God for me, right, who I'm under his lordship, that's my Lord. If I don't figure out from him what I should do and then vet it through my wife and through counselors, I'm screwing myself up. I've lived that. Like I said, I've lived that life before where Teddy's in control and Teddy makes those decisions based out of emotion or gut or whatever heck you want to call it. Hey, have at it. Have at it. Drive your freaking head to that wall all you want. I'm done with that life, right? I've found success in having peace. If I ain't got peace about it, if Teddy can't sleep and Teddy's only sleeping 2 or 3 hours, that is not a good thing for this world, right? And so pray. Lupe, what do you think about this? If she's on board, then that's a huge indicator for me. If she's like, you know what? I like that. Then I'm going to town because as my teammate, as my, as our unit, then I can, I'm pumped because now she's on my side. She's going to encourage it.
It's like Bill Belichick getting a no from Tom Brady.
That's it.
No, Bill, I don't want to run it that way.
Yep. Oh, snap.
Maybe we should change the playbook.
That's right. Yeah. And then I ask counsel, right? If I call Bill, or if I call you, if I call Troy, if I call my parents.
Who have we seeked out for Takaba?
What do you mean? As far as
wise counsel?
Gosh, how many people have we not?
Yeah.
Right?
Mo.
I think everybody that we come across.
Did we mention ask. Mo before?
Yeah. Mo Evans.
Yeah.
Right? My customers. Yeah. I'm not even kidding you. So this is a shout out to Newman Daly, Miss Jeannie Daly. I've sat in her office multiple times. She has a thriving, hospitality business. And I'm like, you know what? I'm no fool. She's doing great. You know why? Because she's a great leader and she cares about people. She's a great business person. And so I've sat there and asked her about, how do you hire?
You took Joom to lunch?
Yep. I asked Joom. I, try to get, stuff out of his brain.
We had lunch with Randy Wise.
Randy Wise. I mean, good Lord. I mean,
Tim Kirby.
Let's see.
Matt McCune,
Bob McGill. I mean, you name it. I have asked.
Those are some pretty successful people.
Yeah. We're trying. Hey, if you're out there and who are we trying to get time with right now?
Xader Corp. Answer my email. Xader. You're in Destin, and so are we.
Jay Odom.
Yeah. Gonna knock on his door.
Yeah, we're gonna knock. Hey, we're looking to grow, and we're trying to figure out, how to do this thing right. And so, Yeah, I don't make a decision. I try not to. I'm not going to say I don't, because I do. I try not to make decisions in a vacuum. And the main reason I want to do that is I want to model for my kids, right, how to do this thing out of principles. When you don't do things out of principles, you set yourself up for a lot of pain. And if I can prevent some of that pain, not all the pain, I'm not trying to prevent pain from my kids' lives, but I want them to be prudent.
Pain is your friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Pain is a good indicator that we're doing something wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Let's figure it out.
That's right. Yeah. Put your hand on that plate.
Yeah. Hey, snatches hurt my hip.
Yeah.
And,
Quick story.
long rucks hurt my hip. Why don't you do more of that? Don't do
it. Yeah. I went to a steakhouse here in town, and they bring out the steaks on these 600-degree plates, right? And Joshua, of course, has a high pain tolerance.
Yeah. For life and for physical.
Life,
yeah.
Not just physical. And the guy's literally talking to him. Do not touch this plate. It's 600 degrees. So, of course, we all look and we're like, here we go.
Shouldn't have said that.
And Joshua puts his finger on it. And, of course, he gets burned a little bit. He's like, I don't think it's 600 degrees, right? And it's so funny because, I'm like that. The one thing that frustrates me more about one of my children is that they test the boundary. And then Lupe reminds me.
That's you.
Yeah, Lupe reminds me, hey, that's exactly what you do.
Emma, why are you yelling and complaining and you don't stop?
Yep.
She's your daughter.
That's Brandon Graves Jr.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's kind of where I'm at. I haven't made a decision there because I don't have peace. I have changed my conviction to some extent. I don't think taking on debt as a company is bad or evil, as long as you have a plan to recoup that, money and revenue and profit. I haven't got a plan for that yet. So it would be foolish for me to go, hey, give me $500,000. What's your plan? I don't know. I'm going to make money. That's a dumb plan, right? So I'm going to try to get as much information as I can.
If you pitch it that way, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about, some of your decisions. Big
tough
decisions.
Decision. So there are those that kind of hit the radar day in and day out with the range and the struggle that we're going through trying to get an outdoor shooting range stood up in Freeport, Defuniak Springs, Florida. And, there's a lot of opposition for whatever reason, for different reasons. And so we battle through that on how to maneuver, how to address issues, who to bring on board, how to keep information, how to be transparent. So I'm navigating that for the first time, a major development order in Walton County.
I got one, and I think this one's going to apply to a lot of people that are listening. Jobs, right? You have had several jobs, right? You have left several jobs. Those are huge decisions, right? In some cases, it can be easy because the next job is offering you more money, more responsibility, more of what you want. Easy decision.
Yeah.
But what if you hate your job, right? And you're out there trying to figure out, what am I going to do next?
Been there.
Right?
Yep.
How do you go about making that decision?
Okay.
What kind of counsel have you gotten for that?
This one's pretty easy. You hate your job and you recognize that you hate your job. Okay. Start to develop an exit plan. If your job is to the detriment of your strengths and who you are and how you want to operate, life is short. I think there's a season for doing the things that suck in life. If you're 5 or 6 years into some job and you think, oh my God, I've got to do this for 20, you don't. It's 2019. There's a ton of opportunity. There's all the opportunity in the world to relearn a skill set, to develop a new network. I think a lot of moving industries depends on who you are and your taste for risk.
Sure.
And where you're at and who else is involved. If I'm a single 25-year-old guy with no responsibility other than myself, dude, go do whatever.
Yeah, but still have some principles when you make those decisions.
Yeah.
What you don't want to do is, right, I'll give you an example. If you were 25, when you were 25, I asked you a lot of questions. And you had these grandiose ideas of you were going to go do the long walk.
Yeah.
And be CAG.
Going to do CAG, and I'm going to, at the same time, have a family and be around. And
what kind of questions did I ask you?
How do you plan on doing that?
Well, and I said, do you want to be married? And you were like, yes. Good luck. Right? And you were like, what? Do you want to be married and like be with your wife, or do you want to be married just to have a piece of paperwork? Right? So even if you are single, you've got to think about further on what you want life to look like, and then reverse engineer. If you don't ever want to get married, fine, do whatever the heck you want, right? It's only going to affect you. If you're thinking about getting married, having children, putting roots somewhere, right? Different story.
Yeah.
Go get some freaking advice from somebody, right? Have somebody give you some feedback.
I can tell you what you don't want to do. Quit your job without something else to get into.
Horrible idea.
You don't leave where you're at without having whatever's lined up next lined up.
That's right.
And so I'll tell you who doesn't get hired, the guy that's unemployed.
Yeah, it's hard.
Employers don't hire you if you're unemployed.
Yep.
They're going to hire you out of a position that you're currently in.
That's right.
That I'm just telling you.
Good advice. Something that a lot of guys don't get. They're like, you know what? Emotionally, I hate this job. I'm out. It's like, why did you do that? Why not wait a couple weeks or a couple months?
Eat shit for a season. Eat shit for a season while you line things up.
Then
do what you got to do, and then hey, give them your 2 weeks notice or do the right thing. Say, hey, I this is not for me. Whatever the case may be, I'm out.
Somebody that talks you off of the edge, right?
Yeah.
So just earlier you were sending out,
a nasty email,
a nasty gram.
Yeah, and our attorney called and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm fucking pissed.
Yeah.
And we're getting shafted, and there's no recourse. There's nothing I can do."
Right.
And then we had a conversation, and I explained where I'm coming from, and he talked me off the ledge.
Yeah.
And that was good. That's
you know what he is? He's a counselor.
He's a paid-for advisor.
So I don't know that we can, I don't know that. I think here's where people are going to struggle, right? Is finding counsel. You're going to have, our audience is going to go, I don't have anybody, right? What do you tell those people?
Go find them.
Yeah. Go make friends. Go ask somebody. You know what? If you do inventory of your life and there's nobody in your life that loves you or has any good interest in you, call us up. We'll give you some good advice, right?
We'll take you to lunch.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I want to finish out with this story, another story with Bill when I was going through my finances, sucking real bad. In 2008, so this is several years into it. Lupe and I's anniversary, 10 years, right? We're going to celebrate, and I, still being selfish, knucklehead, I said, I'm going to celebrate by buying myself a watch, right? So I spent some money on a watch. The $20 limit had not changed yet because we weren't out of debt. And I was like, screw that. I'm not calling Bill. Like, I'm doing this. I deserve this, right? And this is how we do it. This is how Teddy does it. I deserve this, I went and got that watch, showed up to one of the studies, and he was like, what's the deal with that watch? And I was like, felt shame. And he's like, I thought anytime we spent 20, and here's the crazy part. Bill will call me and tell me when he was spending more than $20. He wasn't in debt. His finances were squared away. And I was like, why would he call me? Right? Because he's building this trust. He's building, right, this standard, this principle that if we're going to do this, we're going to do this, right? And the other thing that I learned from that is he didn't judge me, right? And I made that mistake, and we suffered for it, for sure, and I, instead of building trust in my wife, I built distrust again. I had to gain that trust all over again. But once you find counselors and you find, people that'll speak into your life, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go and change your mind when you do stuff. So it's a slow, long process where you constantly let people into your life, right?
One of the things you have to remember is if you're the guy who's offering your advice, is you can't get pissed when people don't take it.
That's right. Don't take it personally.
You may be one data set in their collection of 5 or 10.
That's right.
And you're probably not the smartest person they are gathering advice from.
That's right.
And be okay with that.
Yep. But you may be the only person they're gathering advice from. And they still may not take the advice.
Remember that.
Yep.
There's life and death in the tongue.
Yep. Big time.
What else?
I think that's it.
We talked about best case, worst case, most likely.
Yep.
I love most likely. If you're going to do a 20-minute assessment, spend 2 minutes on the worst case, spend 2 minutes in la la land on the best case, and do an honest assessment with somebody else on the most likely case scenario of what's going to take place based on your data points.
That's right.
Then take that information and go triangulate it with someone who has credibility and a lot of believability in that domain.
Yep.
And do that with 2 or 3 people.
So that
And
brings up
put those 3 people on a phone call.
There you go. So listen, we've reached out to a bunch of the leaders in this town.
Mm-hmm.
And not once have we gotten hey, don't call me, don't ask me stupid questions like that.
You'll get the old soft no, which is a no response.
You may get
And
a no
that's fine.
response, but we're better than 50% right now. Getting lunch with
Way over 50, Teddy.
Randy Wise,
We're at probably 90.
Ryan Jumonville.
It'd be easier for me to name the ones that didn't respond as opposed to
the
those
ones that
have.
Yeah. So if you find somebody that's really good in a domain that you're trying to figure out, more than likely they're going to respond to you. They're going to be excited that somebody wants their advice.
Old tongue loves to wag.
Dude.
Yep.
So
Take them out to lunch or dinner. Get coffee.
Yep.
And then it may be a pay to play, which we're about to entertain tomorrow morning for a call at 9 a.m.
That's right.
There's an opportunity when you have someone who has a lot of information and they are serious about what they do.
And really good at it. Yeah.
Very good at what they major in what they do. You may have to pay to play. And I used to take that personally.
Sure.
I don't know, man, that fucking guy's going to make me pay for this.
Yep.
It's a good way for him to sift through and go, who's serious and who's not.
That's right. They'll pay a cost.
You pay to play.
That's all I figure out.
Yep.
I ask guys, hey, do you want to read in the mornings at 4 o'clock in the morning? Most of them say no. And I'm like, what are you doing that for? Sleeping? Well, you don't want to pay the cost.
Yep.
Somebody needs to help you make decisions.
What else?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, surround yourself with counsel, right? Find counsel that's good at areas that you're trying to,
And let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts.
Hit us up. Find us on here. Put in your comments and your 2 cents. Be the peanut gallery. It's always fun and interesting.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I shared a lot of my customers. I've actually sat in their offices and asked them advice. I'm trying to remember if I shared that before we close out.
Yeah, with Miss Jeannie.
Jeannie Daly, Jackie, Ely, Bob McGill, all these guys. I mean, I have asked them, and they're more than willing to give you advice.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love to sit around and hear the different levels and the different advice on stuff, because you will literally get opposing views from both parties that have convictions.
That's right.
And they've found success in a lot of different ways.
They have.
But you say, hey, what are your convictions? Is that something you always operate by? And they go, absolutely.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
So,
well,
all right, good deal.
Yeah, good deal. I like it.
Yep.
Hey, hopefully this encourages you guys. Profits over parrots. Go out there and gain some truth and knowledge. Get some real deep convictions about what you believe. Try it out and let us know what you think. If there's something we're missing as far as decision making, we want to hear about it. If there's stuff that you don't agree with or you agree with or encourages you,
let us know.
Heck yeah, let us know. And go out there and stick your neck out. Take risks. And until next time, holler at you.